mynews.studio.
Imagine millions of people quietly agreeing to give up a bit of their paycheck for climate action. Yet despite that, leaders seem hesitant to move forward. Why is that?
It's August 8th, 2025. Let's dive in. A large international study just revealed that 69% of people globally are willing to give up at least 1% of their income for climate change initiatives. That's nearly 130,000 people surveyed from 125 countries. Did you anticipate support at that level?
Honestly, no, and most policymakers were just as surprised. What's even more striking is that 89% want governments to take stronger action on climate. So this isn't just a small vocal group, it's the majority. But somehow, it hasn't been obvious in the public conversation.
But here's the question. If so many people are in favor, why do governments seem so slow to act? Is something being missed?
There is a missing link, actually. It's called the perception gap. Even though 69% are willing to contribute, most people believe only about 43% of others would do the same. So people underestimate how common this support is. Policymakers pick up on that hesitation.
That adds up. If you think you're in the minority, you're less likely to speak out. And then, leaders might not feel the pressure to act. Has this perception gap shifted policy yet?
We're starting to see some movement. As awareness grows, governments are responding. For instance, China now gets more than half its energy capacity from renewables, and about a third of its electricity is green. The European Union and China are working together more on things like carbon markets, technology, and climate finance, even though they still have trade disagreements.
In places facing the worst effects of climate change, are people even more willing to act?
Yes, absolutely. Support is strongest where climate impacts are most severe. There's particular momentum for urgent steps like reducing methane emissions, which can bring down warming relatively quickly.
Beyond backing policies, what else can individuals or communities do? Do grassroots movements really have an impact?
Definitely. Take the Philippines. Local advocacy led to the People's Survival Fund, which supports climate adaptation at the community level. In Germany, citizen cooperatives pushed for the Energiewende, the major energy shift. And internationally, youth-led movements like Fridays for Future have shaped national climate targets.
Kenya's work in the Mau Forest is another good case. Community efforts there actually influenced national policy and brought in international funding. So, the shift isn't just coming from the top.
Exactly. When people organize, show solutions, or build enough public momentum, governments tend to follow. The challenge is making that support visible and closing the perception gap.
Let's look at the big players. How does cooperation between the EU and China affect the global climate effort?
When the two largest economies work together, they set standards and drive momentum globally. Their collaboration on technology, renewables, and climate finance helps developing countries make faster progress. But it's not always smooth. Trade disputes and differences over issues like coal can disrupt things.
Trust and openness are essential. If they can keep lines of communication open, share technology, and stick with multilateral cooperation, progress could accelerate. But if tensions escalate, there's a risk things could stall or even reverse. Is that fair?
That's right. It's a balancing act, but what's changed now is that the so-called silent majority is pushing leaders to be more ambitious. The public mandate is there, and we're starting to see governments respond.
So, it seems the real issue isn't a lack of public will, it's political leadership and perception lagging behind.
Exactly. The data show that when leaders recognize visible collective action, real change can happen.
Today, we've seen that the narrative of climate indifference doesn't match reality. Most people are ready for action, and that could be a turning point for policy worldwide.
Thank you for joining us. Remember, the power to drive change is more widespread and often quieter than it appears.
Thanks for listening. This episode was brought to you by mynews.studio. Try it now for free.